Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the District Department of Public Works Recycling webinar for hotels, motels, and inns. Thank you all for taking the time today to join us. So here's our agenda for today's webinar. We'll do some quick round of welcomes and introductions. We'll go over current recycling requirements and discuss new upcoming requirements that will be effective in 2018. We'll review how this change may impact hotels, motels, and inns, and we'll also take some time to solicit some feedback in terms of what tools and resources may be helpful for your industry to transition to this new recycling list. We also have some colleagues here from DOE today, the Department of Energy and Environment, who will be doing an overview of the food service packaging rules. We'll take some time for questions at the end as well as go over the timeline. Few housekeeping information. Today's webinar will be recorded and available online. We will be emailing everyone with resources and this presentation deck after the webinar. And if you have any questions or feedback, there will be an opportunity at the end for Q&A, so please use the chat function on the right. And if you forget your question, we will share our email information at the end so you can contact us. If you have something specific or technical that you would like, we will provide our information. So we have two speakers today. My name is Helen Lee. I am a program analyst at the Office of Waste Diversion. I also have Lillian Power joining us with me today from the Department of Energy and Environment in the Watershed Protection Division to talk about the food service packaging rules. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. First, we'll be discussing district's new recycling requirements. First, I wanted to go over current recycling requirements to you all. There are three basics, whereas private collection property, you must provide adequate waste collection services, which include supplying accessible recycling containers so that your guests and staff can recycle at the hotels. So you can think about places where waste is generated, including guest rooms, front desk, lobbies, elevator lobbies, lounges, retails, and the bars, restaurant, cafes in your hotels, motels, and inns. Current recycling rules state that you should also communicate information annually, including how and what to recycle, as well as posting signs at containers showing what to place in those recycling bins. Also, as a commercial property owner, currently it is required to separate paper, separate and recycle paper, paperboard, cardboard, metal, and plastics that are narrow-neck plastic bottles. And this new requirement that will be effective in January 1, 2018, is a change in what is required to be recycled in the district. So recycling rules have always been in place, but really what we're talking about, what is considered to be recycled, and that will be the only change in terms of recycling requirements. So this past December, the mayor's list of recyclables and compostables was published, where for the first time in the district, it provides a single comprehensive list of recyclables. So in a lot of cases now, what you can recycle depends on where you are. What you can recycle at work and home and school or even hotels can be different where you go. Now there will be one defined list of recyclables that all district properties will be required to follow. This was a requirement of the Sustainable Solid Waste Management Amendment Act of 2014, and this list will go into effect January 1, 2018, and until then, existing requirements will remain in effect in terms of what is considered recyclable. If you'd like to make that switch early on, that's okay too. We want to provide ample enough time for our stakeholders to know this new list in transition. So this list was created by a survey of the recycling facilities in the region, where we asked them which materials they would accept but do not want, or reject. So recyclable materials that were added on this list were the ones the majority of the facilities accepted. What was removed were those that the recycling facilities did not want. So diving closer into this list of what is now recyclable are materials like paper and plastic food service items. That is one of the biggest change. So this includes pizza boxes, paper coffee cups, paper and plastic plates, bowls, clamshells. These materials should be clean and empty, but if pizza boxes, for example, have a little bit of oil on them, that is okay to recycle. If it's drenched in sauce and cheese and it's obvious there's a lot of residue, we ask that it goes into the trash, or if you are currently composting, you can compost those materials too. Other materials that are now considered recyclable for the commercial sector are rigid bulky plastics such as milk crates, large plastic tubs and containers like for those coffee or deli products like yogurt, jugs, milk, juice, and soup cartons, as well as various different types of books, paper books, telephone books, hardback books, wrapping paper, aerosol cans, and aluminum foil and aluminum pie pans will be recyclable. So what is now removed from what is considered to be recyclable is plastic bags, films, and wraps. For single-stream curbside, we are asking residents to put their recyclables in paper bags, but loose is really preferred. These bags and wraps can often be recycled at grocery stores or large retailers in the district. Now, for commercial properties, we are allowing large liners for commercial operational purposes. However, please keep in mind that a lot of recycling facilities often reject the whole bag of recyclables because the bags create an operational and safety hazard as seen on the bottom right picture. Bags of bags are what we really want to avoid, but larger liners are accepted to move materials to your dumpsters or compactors outside. So how this list might impact your stakeholder group, the hotels, motels, inns, industries. You may be required to communicate with your guests on these recycling requirements, may require new signage or training staff, may require checking with your hauler to ensure compliance on your contract so that there's not a list of specific items that will prevent you from recycling these materials. So the resources that are currently available now live on our website, bpw.dc.gov/recycling compost list. On that website, you'll be able to find a list of frequently asked questions, a fact sheet that you can download. On the front, it has the 3 recycling requirements we talked about, who it applies to. It is all district properties. As well as on the back, you'll have kind of a nice sign of what materials should go into the recycling bin. There's also case studies in terms of if there's anyone in the room who's interested in some of the technical aspects of this list of, does food residue contaminate my bin? There are materials related to that on that website, and we will be developing new materials for outreach. Another exciting resource that is now available is called the Compactor Grant. You guys might have compactors already in your facilities, but this is a $1 million compactor grant total, where eligible DC business owners may use this grant to purchase up to $13,500 for the purchase of a compactor, or lease up to $9,000 to collect and compact bulk trash and other waste, including recyclables. The application will be accepted starting June 30th, 2017. And the submission deadline is September 8, and it will be awarded on a first-come, first basis. So I really would like to encourage everyone to check this out if you are looking for ways to compact waste and perhaps reduce your recycling or waste hauling fees and costs. Additional tools and resources that we are in consideration for development at this time, we're looking into developing additional outreach materials such as decals for dumpsters that you can download and print, other materials such as commercial recycling guide on tips on how to effectively implement recycling programs in your properties, fact sheet, as well as a capacity calculator where you can input numbers and maybe terms of how many guests you have, and then it kind of punches out the volume of waste you might need in terms of bin size at the outside dumpster end. We're also looking into an online technology tool called the Sign Maker, where any stakeholders can go on the website, drag pictures onto the Sign Maker. You can print it out and post it on your walls to help improve recycling communication. So at this time, I'm going to unmute everyone. What I would like to ask for your feedback on is what other tools and resources you might need to help successfully transition. So if you can give me 1 second to unmute you all. Okay, everyone's unmuted. Does anyone have any specific questions or feedback?
Actually, I have a question. I'm calling from the Capitol Hilton. I was thinking that this program was going to discuss some food waste compost options. Do you have anything on that?
Yes, we're going to be talking about food service packaging regulations in a second. In terms of specifically composting, there are no requirements at this time. No one's required to compost until we establish that program. I know that there's a study that we recently produced, and we can share that information with you all that assesses the feasibility of implementing a composting program in the district. So I can share that information with you all after this webinar, but we will in a moment be going over some of the recyclable and compostable packaging requirements in terms of what you're supposed to buy for your consumers and customers.
Okay. Thank you.
I will also add that there is now, the district has this new free program, and it's designed for district residents, so feel free to share with people who might be interested, but district residents can now drop off your food waste, food scraps, for free at a designated farmers market location, and that will be all composted for free. At this time, that's not a program available for businesses or commercial properties, but we did want to share that in case anyone's interested. So I'll also forward that information on after this webinar through email. Does anyone else have questions or feedback in terms of what you guys might need the most in terms of switching to the new recycling list? Okay, we will have more time for questions at the end, so if you can think of something, that's fine too. So we'll go ahead and mute you guys all, and we'll continue the webinar. Okay, so we talked about recycling for hotels and how to discard materials after they have been generated. Now my colleague from DOE will be talking about for food and beverage establishments in your hotels, such as bars, restaurants, and cafes, the food packaging requirements that are applied in terms of what products you procure and source for customer and consumer use. And these materials, once they are ready to be discarded for waste, they will have to be following the recycling list of what materials are considered to be recycled and what we just talked about. So I'll hand it over to Lillian.
All right, hi everyone. Again, my name is Lillian Power. I'm an environmental protection specialist with the Department of Energy and Environment. As Helen mentioned, I just wanted to talk to you guys today about some relatively new requirements for disposable food serviceware for pretty much any businesses or organizations in the city that are selling or serving food or beverages. So as Helen mentioned, right, for hotels and motels and inns, that's typically your cafes, your restaurants, if you serve a continental breakfast or food of any kind in the lobby, if you're serving, coffee or water in the lobby, room service, if you, have any of these at your businesses, then these laws apply to you. This law applies to you. So kind of going into the law itself, as you may be aware, starting in 2016, there is now a ban on styrofoam disposable food serviceware. So businesses and organizations can no longer use expanded polystyrene to sell or serve their customers. And now, as part of that law, starting in 2017, not only can you no longer use styrofoam, but those items must be considered compostable or recyclable. And we actually define compostable and recyclable according to the mayor's list. So the mayor's list really is, you know, your resource hub for everything that we consider compliant. And I will also mention that while, you know, this part of the law has been effective since January, we are basically undergoing kind of a year-long stretch of pure education and outreach to make sure that businesses and organizations are aware of these components, and then we will begin actively enforcing in January of 2018. So currently, you know, we're really pressing outreach and education. So what exactly is recyclable and compostable food serviceware? What do we consider compliant? What you see on the screen right now is basically pulled directly from the mayor's list. It's just specific to disposable food serviceware. So essentially, if an item is a rigid plastic, if it's a paper product or a plant product of any type, if it's, you know, pulp or wood, if it is a paper product with a thin plastic coating like your typical soda cups, coffee cups, if it's a paper product with a wax coating, or if it's a compostable product that's been certified as compostable by the Biodegradable Products Institute, those are all considered compliant. So essentially, right, the gist is it rigid plastic, paper with a thin coating of plastic or wax? Those are our compliant items. There are a few items that we do not want in actually the recycling stream that we do consider as recyclable. So particularly items that are made of recyclable materials such as like cutlery, straws, you know, condiment cups, plastic coffee stirs. These are all small items. They're smaller than 2 by 2 inches in any two dimensions. These should not go into the recycling bin, but you are allowed to use these to serve your customers. So while they are compliant under the food service packaging requirements, they should not be going into the recycling stream. Just wanted to make sure that was clear. What is no longer allowed? What do we consider as banned? As I said, right, obviously, like the styrofoam ban still in place. Definitely not allowed to use styrofoam still. In addition now, though, with these 2017 requirements, we're really prioritizing items that are made of mixed materials. So if it's a paper plastic item or a paper foil or something of that kind, then it is banned. So for example, your donut boxes with a plastic window, or your bread bags with a plastic window, or, you know, hot dog wrappers are sometimes like half foil on one side, paper on the other side, right? Like there's basically just a series of items that are made of either, you know, paper and plastic or paper and foil or something, you know, of that kind. Those are no longer allowed because they're not considered recyclable or compostable. So those are banned. The law does not apply. There are certain exemptions to the law, right? So anything that's been packaged outside the district, so if you have things shipped into your business, right, and they're packaged in, you know, what we've been talking about is technically banned, right, there's an exemption for that. This is really specific to anything that's been packaged within the district. You know, if you have any like raw, uncooked meat, fish, poultry, right, that is an exemption as well. And then anything for home use, which really isn't particularly relevant here, but there is an exemption for people using items at home. And with that, that's kind of the general overview of these new requirements, and I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any questions with the food packaging requirements in particular.
So we did mute everyone, unmute everyone. So if you guys have any questions or other feedback, now's your chance. Okay.
All right, great.
So quickly, just to reinforce kind of the timeline, that mayor's list we talked about in terms of what materials are considered recyclable and where to place them, if it's in the recycling bin or the trash stream. That list was published in December of 2016. The recycling facilities, solid waste haulers and recycling haulers, they have all been notified and are aware of this change. Now we're at spring, so both DPW and DOE were working together to notify district businesses of these new changes and doing some stakeholder engagement and doing outreach. And we are, again, soliciting feedback for, what outreach tools and resources would be most helpful to transition to this new list. We are developing those guidance sheets and decals and sign makers and all of those materials now. And in the fall, our goal is to publish those materials online so that anyone can use these free resources to transition. And starting January 1, 2018, the food packaging rules as well as the mayor's list of recyclables and compostables will go into effect, meaning that all district properties must separate recyclables, and that would be all commercial businesses, residential, government, and schools, all district properties at the point of discard. So that's the timeline. We have plenty of time, so if anyone wants to ask more questions, we will be around. If not, our information is available on the screen, and again, we will follow up with an email today with the slide deck and the resources that are currently developed. So if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly, or we'll stick around for another until 2:30.